I'm going to turn it off and on to compare the two versions. And again, I just wanted to make them a little bit more noticeable in the corner, lighten them up, and that's what I've done here with this adjustment layer. Let's have a look at these tree leaves here that we just see in the top corner. Again, this is a good example for you guys of composition and balance in your scene. We've got something up in this top corner, so we needed to have something in the bottom corner, and when I created the camera in view, I made sure I pulled out until I just saw something in the bottom corner to balance the scene out. So let's work on the tree leaves here in the top, so back into our channels. Let's find our tree leaves, should be this one here. Back into our layers, back down to our color layer, and do a Control C, and you know the drill, paste in place. Again, we're going to go with the brightness contrast. You see, I tend to use that quite a bit. I'll use levels as well. I generally don't use curves quite so much, but brightness contrast and levels I tend to use quite a bit. Remember to create a clipping mask. Again, I'm just going to pull back on my my render here so I can see the entire image while I'm fine-tuning this. Turn it off and turn it on to see the difference between the two. And again, I just wanted to bring those leaves into just a bit sharper focus to match the alteration we did to the flowers here in this corner. We have a bush here in the background. Let's have a look at that. Make a selection. Back to our color copy and a Control C and a paste in place again. Again, we're going to do a brightness and contrast to make sure we do a clipping plane, a clipping mask. And I'm just darkening that bush in the background up a little bit more to give it a bit more contrast against the background. Okay, is there anything else here I want to change? Not at the moment. I'm not going to do any color correction to the other path. I did want to do the path. Should be this one here. Again, paste in place. Again, we're going to do a brightness and brightness contrast or levels would probably work okay for the path. I'll try brightness contrast first. Always remember to create that clipping plane though. But I want to darken the path up just a bit. That's the actual dirt on the path. Turn that on and off to compare the before and the after. I think I will also throw down a hue and saturation. Where is it? Right there. Okay. Now again, create a clipping mask. I might just pull some of the colour out of that path as well. I do that just by pulling back on the saturation. Don't go too far to go grey, but pull it back until you get a colour that you like the look of. I want a hint of colour in the dirt, but not too much. I don't want it to look quite as brown or yellow. And you see by just pulling out a little bit of the saturation just helps take some of the yellow out of the dirt. And the brightness and contrast just darkens up the path a bit more. Alright. I don't think there's anything else in this image for the moment. Let's move on to another image. I think the main camera, let's do that one. So this is our main shot, that the pulled back shot that we did, of more of the environment, so there'll be more things to do color correction on here. But let's start with our Z depth again, or our depth of field. Again, we're going to do an inversion on the Z depth. Again, I'm going to do a levels on the Z depth to make the background dark. I want black in the background. So pull it down just until you hit the edge of that histogram thing there. So we have black in the background, white in the foreground. I'll do a Control A and a Control C to copy that. Now we can turn those both off to go back to our color layer at the bottom. We're going to go layer mask and do a reveal all again. Jump into our channel, and in our layer mask channel, Control V to copy in our Z depth. Again, we're going to make a copy of that color channel and delete the second layer mask here at the bottom. Jump back into our top one and we're going to do our blur again, our lens blur. Alright, now we have to decide which part of this scene we want to be in focus and which part we don't. So let's play with our blur focal distance again. No, it's starting to blur just everything that way. Now you can see that in here we've got more of the background in focus and less of the foreground, so let's keep pulling it up. Again, we have our garden terrace here is in focus and our foreground here is out of focus, and that's probably more the look I'm going for, because I want to draw your attention to the garden terrace, not so much the environment. If you wanted it the other way around and you keep pulling it up until you got the foreground in focus and the background out of focus. But I'm going to say, if you were standing there and using your camera, you would be focusing on that garden terrace and less on what's in the foreground. But that's, the blur on that is way too much, so we're going to pull that back on the radius. These larger scenes with more of an environment, you have to be a little bit more subtle with your radius, with your depth of field. You don't want too much blur going on. You can get away with more blur when you're focused in close on a hard surface like this terrace itself, but a wider shot like this environment, don't go too blurred. Don't blur up too much. 23 I think is too high. Let's just turn preview on and off to get a comparison here. So you see that the garden terrace in the background is staying in focus. It's more the trees at the top, the tree leaves at the top, and the flowers in the foreground here that are getting out of focus. They're gradually less as you look back into the image. We're at 16, let's take the radius back to 12. And that should be good. We just want a slight blur on the flowers in the foreground. And still keeping our terrace here in the center in focus. So that's off and that's on. Okay. Again, you're not going to see it until you delete that layer mask there. So again, that's on and that's off. Really only going to notice it if you're looking at the flowers here and the leaves up here. So off and on. Just subtle, not too hard. Not too strong for your blur. Let's do some color correction to begin with on the leaves here in the foreground. So I'm going to jump into my channels again. Actually, before I do that, did I do a correct? Yeah, I did. Let's do a brightness and contrast on the entire image. Again, I'm going to pull up on the brightness. I'm going to pull in on the contrast a little bit. So I've gone +4 on the contrast. I'm going to go +30 on the brightness. Just helps to brighten up the entire scene a little bit more. Okay, now let's look at those leaves here at the top. Where are we? Let's select that. Jump back to our RGB and jump back down to our color channel here. We're going to copy and paste in place again. Again, I'm going to do a brightness and contrast to make sure I do a clipping mask. I'm going to pull the leaves up a little bit. I want them a bit brighter. We have to be careful because we actually have the bark, the branches as well as the leaves in this mask, so one thing you can do here is, say I want some of the leaves to be brighter, but my mask is including the branches. Now that was unfortunate because the tree is one object on its own. The view has no way to differentiate between the leaves and the actual branch. You can do that in view in your multi-pass layer. If you instead of selecting object masks, you can select material masks, and then view will actually create a separate mask for the leaves. I didn't do that, so we're going to do it a different way. I'm going to pull up on my leaves here until I get a nice bright looking leaf that I want. Not enough, let's do more. But you see, I don't want my branches to be that bright, so I'm going to erase them. Oh, I'm in the wrong layer. That's the one I want. So basically I'm just erasing anything that I don't want to be highlighted now. So all of the tree trunks, the branches, the darker parts of the leaves, the leaves in the background as well. I'm using a mouse here, but my Wacom tablet's probably better for me to use, so I'm going to be using the stylus here to get a bit finer control over my erasing. But if you're careful, you can use a mouse. You just got to be a bit more careful, that's all. This tree is a separate object, so it's not affecting that at all. I'm going to also start removing some of the highlights from the shadowed areas underneath the leaves. I really only want the highlights to happen on the tops of the leaves themselves. So anywhere where there's shadowing happening on the leaves, I'm also erasing. I'm going to make my brush a bit smaller. Let's turn our layer on and off and check it. So that's off, that's on. There's a few branches I've missed just down the bottom here. Again, we're going to turn it off and on. Again, there's just a couple of spots that I've missed with the branches. See how it's really lighting up the leaves, so it's making it look like there's much more sunlight hitting the top of the leaf than there was before. It's just lightening up the whole tree leaf, the whole tree itself, the leaves of the tree anyway. And I'll just keep turning it on and off so I can see any spots that I need to erase that I missed. And there's a couple over here in the corner. It is amazing, Sniper Echo, I agree. You wouldn't think that making just small changes like this could really affect an image very much, but it does. And they all add up. So even just a small change, like I said, to the tree leaves here, just to bring them up a bit, can really help the overall look of the image. Remember too, if you don't... we've added a layer for our brightness contrast, so we can always turn it off. But another option, remember, is to always just pull back on the opacity to blend them together a bit more. So that's completely off, that's completely on, and we can sort of dial it in exactly how much we want. So I might bring it up to about just around 70%. Okay, let's see what else. Let's look at these two palm trees here in the background. Start with the one on the left-hand side first, I think. Again, I'm going to copy and paste in place. Again, we're going to do a let's do a brightness contrast and make sure we create a clipping mask. I just want to lighten up the palm in the background a little bit more. Just to make it look like a little bit more light is hitting it than was actually in the render. I might throw levels down as well. Again, create a clipping mask. I'm actually going to also throw down a color balance. Again, create clipping mask. I just want to slightly change the color of the green in that palm in the background. Hey Smurfberry, good to see you. So yeah, I just want to change the color of that green in that palm in the background a little bit. So doing a color balance on the top of it. You've got to be careful here because small movements here can make quite a dramatic difference. And remember, you've got different mid-tones, shadows and highlights to work with color balance. Pardon me. Now I'm also going to throw down a hue and saturation here. Again, make sure you do create a clipping mask. Just going to pull out that green a little bit more, pull it back a bit more. I don't want it quite so green. Jump back in my stack here to my levels. Back to my brightness and contrast. Back up to my color balance. I want to bring in a bit more yellow. And to top everything off, I'm going to go up to my opacity and I'm going to start pulling that back a bit as well. Just like that. Again, it's a really subtle difference, but I just wanted to lighten it up, make it a little bit greener, make it look like a little bit more sunlight was hitting it. Let's look at these flowers that are at the base of these stairs here, these purple looking flowers. So jump back into our channel. I'm not going to change that at this stage. Let's select this one here, back to our RGB and back into our level layer, back to our color channel. Again, do a paste in place. Again, we're going to throw down a brightness and contrast and make sure you create a clipping mask. Again, there's subtle changes, but I just want to highlight those flowers a little bit more. That's without it, that's with it. Maybe bring it up a little bit more. Let's do the same thing with the flowers on the opposite side. That one. Again, we're going to do a brightness and contrast and always make sure to create a clipping mask. Let's also throw our levels down, again create a clipping mask.
Cruising highways longer, further. Living life was supposed to be. Red lights never seem to stop us. Trapped in shackles, yet we're free. I tried to limit my restrictions. You always fight to feel complete. I never found out what was needed. Life is always bittersweet.
It looks like when it did its paste in place, it moved it up slightly. It's no big deal. We're just going to nudge it down. That's better. Let's check the one on this side. Same thing, it moved it slightly. Really, I don't know why Photoshop done that. It did that, it shouldn't have really. There we go. Sniper Echo says he will need to test it out, but it seems the blender does have object masking. Excellent. Make sure you do use it if it does have it, because it's really, really handy, useful feature to have. I know Max does have it too. I'd be surprised if Blender, if you couldn't turn it on in Blender. In Max it's not on by default, but you can turn it on. So it's probably setting somewhere in Blender to have it as well. And if it does, make sure you use it, because yeah, it's really useful. Let's have a look at these urn flowers here in the background. Where are they? They've got to be here somewhere. Okay, these ones I think. No, that's not it. This one. Again, make sure you run your color layer before you do a copy and paste in place. Again, we're going to do a brightness and contrast, and make sure create a clipping mask. If you forget to create that clipping mask, you're going to start affecting the entire image. And again, I just wanted to pull up those flowers that are in that urn there in the background, make them a bit brighter. We can't see the ones on the opposite side because they're hidden by most of the palm. Let's have a look at this palm here. I might just pull that up a little bit as well. This one here. Again, brightness and contrast. You'll see I use that quite a lot. Like I said, it's generally brightness, contrast, or levels that I tend to use at this stage.
I'm falling through this empty space of me. All alone, I feel the darkness trapping me inside. All alone.
I just wanted to pull up the difference between the highlighted leaves and the shadowed leaves, so just a slight brightness contrast on that to help make it a little bit more noticeable. Let's look at the path, because remember I want the path to be darker. Again, let's do a brightness and contrast. Again, make sure we do a clipping mask. I want to darken the path up a bit. I also want to add a hue and saturation. Again, make sure a clipping mask. And I want to pull back on the saturation a little bit, take out some of the yellow from the path. So let's have a 4, and that's our after. Just darkening that path up a bit. What I'm going to do too though is I'm going to go back to using my pen here with the tablet. I'm just going to erase with a really large brush, so it's very soft, the background here. Just a bit through here as well. Okay. What else do we want to do here? Let's look at this rose bush over here in the corner. That one there. Again, let's go with the brightness and contrast. And let's just pull our opacity back just a little bit. Maybe to around about 80%. Let's look at this bush in the background, I think. No symbols today, Smurfberry. Yeah, let's. I'm trying to find that flowering bush that's in the background there. That's the one there. Again, we'll go back to our base color layer and copy and paste in place. You've got symbols. I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do. Symbols for days. Again, let's do a brightness and contrast. Make sure we do a clipping mask. I want to pull that bush back a bit. It's behind a terrace. I don't really want it to be quite so noticeable. I wanted to add more of a shadow behind the angel here. That'll just help to pull her forward a bit more. Again, I'm going to pull back on my opacity just a bit. Better just before 90%, I think. Again, the same bush here on the other side. I want to have a look at that as well. Again, a brightness and contrast and a clipping mask. Again, I'm going to pull it back a bit. And also pull back on the opacity on that layer. Let's see, what else do we want to do here? There's a few more bits and pieces I want to do. We might call it a day there though, because I still have to do overall color correction on all the images. Do a vignette on it. Let's just go through what we've done then. I'm just going to save our file here. So we have our pullback camera, which we've done probably 3/4 of the color correction on bits and pieces. Just a few little bits and pieces I want to look at tomorrow before we do an overall color correction and vignette. This one, we've done our depth of field as well. We've done the color correction that we wanted to do. We still have to do an overall color correction and a vignette. This one, we've done color correction on the bits and pieces. Depth of field, but we're still going to do an overall color correction and vignette. The same for this one. We've color corrected a few different bits and pieces. We've done our depth of field, but we've still got to do an overall color correction and a vignette. And this one as well. We've still got to do the color correction and the vignette. But that gives you guys an overview of what I've done. When I come back on tomorrow, we will be finishing doing the color correction on these. There's not a lot left to do. There's a few more bits and pieces in this image that I need to do color correction on individually. Not a lot. And then it's just a question of doing an overall color correction and a vignette on all of the images. That won't take too long because I'm going to be using a specific plugin that was developed by Magic Bullet called Looks to do that. I'll go through that tomorrow though. But that gives you guys an idea of how you do your color correction, how you use your object masks. Like I said, tomorrow we will be finishing off these images. And then if there's any time left over, what I'll probably do is take our original Garden Terrace in 3D Studio Max and just render out, in using V-Ray, a model shot of the textured model on its own, and then the textured model with an occlusion render with no textures. That's just if we have any time left over tomorrow, because next week, when we come back, I want to start doing work in the Unreal Engine 4, creating our Art Deco building exterior and interior. So that's what we'll be doing next week, starting on Monday next week. Tomorrow we're going to be finishing doing this color correction work. Not a lot left to do. If we get it done before the end of the stream, before 7 US time, we will be jumping into Max and just doing some renders of the Garden Terrace model on its own with no environment, just a textured render of the model and an occlusion render of the model. So yeah, like I said, there's not a lot left to do, just some basic color correction work left on these images. And then next week we'll be jumping into Unreal Engine 4. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me and for watching the stream. I really do appreciate it. Thank you guys in chat for popping in and saying hello. Do remember guys, I always post 15 minutes before I go live to my Twitter page at PhilDoes3D. So if you're not sure when I'm going to be live, keep an eye on my Twitter page. My schedule though doesn't change. I always stream on a Monday, a Tuesday and a Wednesday at 5 PM Pacific time in the US. So I'm always on then. Yes, we'll be working on Unreal next week, Smurfberry. So you guys that are interested in using the Unreal Engine, we'll be creating an Art Deco building fly-through on that. I created one. I'm going to be recreating one I created when in the UDK. I made that 6 years ago, so we'll be redoing it for the new engine in Epix Unreal. We'll be doing that starting next week. Tomorrow's stream we'll be finishing doing the color correction on these images and finishing them off. So yeah, next week for Unreal Engine 4 and tomorrow finishing color correction on these Garden Terrace renders. Like I said, I really do want to thank you guys for hanging out and watching the stream. I really do appreciate it. I will be back on again tomorrow at 5 PM. Again, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for being in chat. And hopefully I'll see you guys tomorrow. See you guys.